A man stands barefoot on the scorching sand of the Midian desert, staring at a thorn bush that refuses to turn to ash, a title that Jewish scholars of the 1st century knew belonged exclusively to the one who spoke from the fire. He takes the bite. He absorbs the violence. The Good Shepherd is not a mercenary. He is the sacrifice. He lays down his life. He bleeds out in the dirt so the flock can survive the night. This is not a tragic accident of Roman history. It is the deliberate strategy of heaven. But a dead shepherd is a tragedy. A dead shepherd cannot protect a flock tomorrow. A lifeless body in the dirt means the wolves eventually win. The claim only holds weight if the shepherd has the authority to get back up. And a few miles away, in a village called Bethany, a cave is sealed with a heavy stone. And a grieving sister is about to find out exactly what happens when the shepherd decides to wake the dead. We are a species haunted by the finality of the grave. We treat death as a fixed, irreversible thermodynamic reality. It is the one boundary line that human engineering, wealth, and philosophy have never been able to cross. Every culture in human history has built its mythologies around trying to manage the terror of that final, plunging drop into nothingness. In the theological framework of 1st century Judaism, there was a category for life after death. The prophet Ezekiel had seen visions of dry bones. Most people assume that when Jesus walks the dusty, limestone roads of Galilee and starts saying things like, "I am the bread," or "I am the light," rattling back to life. And Daniel had written about those sleeping in the dust of the earth waking up, but that hope was safely locked away in the distant future. It was an eschatological moment at the end of time called the Last Day. When Jesus arrives in the village of Bethany, he walks into a wall of grief. The air is thick with the sound of professional mourners wailing in the heat of the afternoon sun. A heavy, rough-hewn limestone disc sits firmly over the mouth of a cave, sealing in the smell of decaying flesh and sweet burial spices. Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. Martha runs out to meet him, and she repeats the standard, orthodox theological comfort of her day. She tells him she knows her brother will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. She is looking for an event. She is waiting for a timeline to fulfill itself. Jesus dismantles her entire theological framework with a single use of the sacred name. I am the resurrection and the life. The resurrection is not a date on the calendar. It is a person. He takes a distant, abstract theological concept and anchors it in his own physical chest. He is just using metaphors. We read the Gospel of John and think we are looking at beautiful imagery. He is telling her that the uncreated power that will eventually remake the cosmos is standing right in front of her, breathing the dusty air of Judea. He holds the Zoe, the indestructible divine life, so fully that physical death literally unravels in his presence. And, to prove it, he does not preach a sermon. He stands before the sealed cave. His voice cuts through the thick, heavy silence of the graveyard, and a dead man shuffles out into the blinding light, his face still wrapped in burial cloth. Death is dismantled at the sound of his voice. But overcoming the grave is only half the equation, because those who are alive still have to navigate a world that has lost its coordinates. And on the night before, he is executed. Jesus takes his closest friends into a locked upper room to reveal the ancient blueprint for how they will survive the dark. The upper room is heavy with the smell of roasted lamb, bitter herbs, and spilled wine. The shadows cast by the oil lamps are long against the stone walls. The betrayal has already been set in motion. Judas has left the table. Jesus tells the remaining 11 that he is leaving. He tells them they know the way to where he is going. We think Jesus is just finding accessible, poetic ways to describe his character to a peasant crowd. Thomas, pragmatic and terrified, speaks for the rest of them. He asks how they can possibly know the road when they do not even know the destination. Jesus looks at him and drops the sacred name a 6th time. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Most people read this as a rigid, exclusive theological boundary line. We treat it as a ticket for going to heaven when we die. But Jesus is not handing them a theological checklist. He is walking them through a piece of ancient architecture. Think back to the wilderness. Think back to the tabernacle, the heavy canvas sanctuary, where the glory of God touched the dust of the earth. The blueprint was precise. To get to the presence of God, a priest had to pass through 3 specific physical entrances. The outer court gate, woven with bright blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, was traditionally called the Way, the door into the holy place. Illuminated only by the fire of the golden menorah, was known as the Truth. The thick, heavy veil separating the holy place from the Holy of Holies, the pitch-black room where the unshielded presence of God sat above the blood-stained mercy seat, was called the Life, the Way, the Truth, the Life. But if you look closer at the Greek text, you realize something much more explosive is happening in the grammar. The tabernacle was not just a tent. It was a map. For centuries, access to the divine required animal blood, burning incense, and a high priest trembling as he pulled back the heavy fabric. The architecture was designed to keep a fragile, sinful humanity from being instantly consumed by an entirely holy God. It was a labyrinth of necessary separation. When Jesus speaks in the upper room, he is telling Thomas that the ancient architecture is collapsing. The map is no longer a building. The map is a man. He is the outer gate. He is the inner door. He is the heavy veil. No more animal blood. No more trembling priests. No more woven barriers, keeping humanity at arm's length. The uncreated presence of God is no longer hiding behind a thick curtain in a stone temple. It is sitting at a wooden table, breaking bread, looking his terrified friends in the eye. But this presence is not just a building you walk through. It is a living, organic thing that you have to attach yourself to if you want to survive. And a few moments later, on the dark walk to the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus points to the side of the road and claims the name one last time. He is not offering poetry. He is claiming a name. 7 times in the Gospel of John, Jesus uses that exact sacred phrase, ego eimi, 7 times. The prophets loved one specific metaphor. They used it again and again. Israel was a vineyard. Read the 5th chapter of Isaiah. It is a heartbreak song. God clears the rocky soil. He digs the trenches. He plants the choicest red vines. He builds a heavy limestone watchtower. He carves out a winepress. He waits for the harvest. He expects sweet, bursting fruit. He gets bitter. Wild grapes. The vineyard fails. The walls are torn down. The briars choke the roots. Wild boars tear up the dirt. The nation splinters into exile. The experiment collapses in the dust. Generations pass. The trauma lingers. Every Jewish child knows the song of the broken vineyard. Now, picture the walk to Gethsemane. It is the middle of the night. The air is freezing. The disciples follow Jesus down into the steep Kidron Valley. They pass the massive exterior walls of the Temple Mount. Moonlight catches a towering, solid gold vine carved directly into the temple doors. It is the ultimate symbol of national pride. Jesus stops in the cold night air. He drops the sacred name. I am the true vine. The Greek word for true is alethenos. It means the genuine article. It means the ultimate reality that the shadow was only pointing toward. For centuries, the people tried to produce the fruit themselves. They built complex religious systems. They followed strict purity laws. They memorized the Torah. He takes the name from the burning bush and attaches it to a physical reality. Bread, light, a door, a shepherd, a resurrection, a way, a vine. They strained to be righteous. They tried to generate their own holiness. They failed every time. The branches withered. The leaves turned brown. The sap dried up. Jesus dismantles the entire agricultural model. He is not demanding a better harvest. He is becoming the root system. He looks at his terrified friends. He tells them to do one thing: abide. The Greek verb is meno. Stay. Remain. Do not leave. The branch does not sweat. The branch does not strain. The branch does not manufacture the sap from the soil. The branch simply stays attached to the heavy wood of the trunk. If the connection holds, the fruit is inevitable. Holiness is not a behavioral achievement. It is a relational byproduct. This was the 7th public declaration. 7 times he took the holy name. 7 times he tied it to a physical reality. 7 times he redefined how humanity interacts with the divine. But there is one more ego eimi hiding in the text. It is not a metaphor. It has no physical object attached to it. It is raw, unshielded power. And when the torches finally come through the olive trees, 2 words are going to knock an armed Roman cohort flat on their backs. The torches bleed through the thick canopy of the olive trees. The silence of the garden shatters under the sound of heavy iron. And every single time he says it, he is not just making up a new metaphor. Marching boots. And the metallic clatter of weapons. Judas does not come with just a handful of temple police. The Greek text says he brings a spira, a Roman cohort. That is, hundreds of battle-hardened, highly trained soldiers, marching into a cold grove to arrest a single, unarmed Galilean. You can smell the burning pitch of the torches mixing with the sweat of nervous men. They expect a fight. They expect him to run, to hide in the deep shadows of the twisted olive trunks, or for his followers to draw their swords in a desperate final stand. Jesus steps directly into the torchlight. He asks them a simple question. "Whom do you seek?" The commander barks back into the night air. "Jesus of Nazareth." And then, Jesus drops the final, hidden ego eimi. He does not attach a metaphor to it this time. He does not say he is the bread, or the light, or the door. In the original Greek text, he does not even say, "I am he," as most English Bibles translate it to make the grammar sound smooth. He simply utters the naked, unshielded name from the burning bush, ego eimi. I am. The reaction is instantaneous. It's violent and completely unnatural. He is reaching all the way back into the ancient Hebrew text, grabbing a specific shadow from the Old Testament. John writes that when Jesus speaks those 2 words, this massive column of Roman infantry and armed temple guards physically recoils. They stagger backward, lose their footing, and crash to the ground. Picture it. Hundreds of armored men, sent by the most powerful empire on the planet, flattened in the dirt by nothing but the sound of a verb. He did not raise a hand. He did not draw a weapon. The bread, the light, the shepherd, all the vine. Those were the physical vessels that helped human minds grasp his nature. But here in the dark, there is no vessel. There is only the raw, consuming fire of the divine name. The arrest is not an ambush. It is an allowance for a brief, terrifying second. The veil is pulled back. The power of the name flashes in the dark, reminding everyone in the garden exactly who is in control of this timeline. He is demonstrating that no empire, no military force, and no earthly authority has the power to take his life from him. He is choosing to lay it down. He stands there, looking down at a bruised and terrified Roman cohort scattered in the dust, and waits for them to catch their breath. He waits for them to stand back up. He lets them tie the heavy ropes, and declaring himself the physical fulfillment of it. The real question of the Gospel of John isn't just, what did Jesus say? It's this, around his wrists. He lets them lead him away to the high priest's courtyard, to the stone floor of the praetorium, and eventually to a wooden beam outside the city walls, because the 7 promises he made still had to be completed. A hungry crowd demands bread in the wilderness, and the God who rained manna down offers them the uncreated life of his own body. Massive temple fires burn out in the Jerusalem night, and the ancient pillar of fire takes on flesh to walk among the shadows. A stone sheepfold offers no wooden gate, and a savior lies down in the dirt to become the physical boundary between the flock and the fangs. The religious elite abandon the bleeding sheep, and the beautiful shepherd steps in front of the wolves to take the fatal bite. A grieving sister waits for a theological event at the end of time, and a dead man walks out of a cave at the sound of a voice. The heavy, The woven veil of the tabernacle keeps humanity at a terrifying distance, and the living map collapses the architecture into a single, breathing chest. An ancient vineyard lies broken and choked with briars, and the true vine becomes the root system for anyone who simply chooses to stay. 7 shadows, 7 realities, 1 unconsuming fire. But maybe the part that stays with me most is that moment in the cold olive grove. The flames twist and snap in the dry desert air. The leaves remain violently green. The wood does not char. What ancient promises was he quietly fulfilling while everyone else was looking the other way? The answer changes how you read every conversation he ever had. An armed Roman cohort. Hundreds of battle-hardened men marching in to take him by force, and they are knocked flat into the dirt by nothing but the breath of his name. Not the name of a distant, abstract deity. The name of a god who possessed enough raw power to flatten an empire, and yet allowed them to stand back up and tie the heavy ropes around his wrists anyway. If you are in a season where you feel like you are wandering in the dark, scraping by on bare biological survival, searching for a gate that will actually keep the wolves out, stop trying to build the architecture yourself. Stop trying to manufacture the sap from the broken soil of your own effort. John, chapter 15, is a place to sit. Abide in me. Meno. The vine does not ask the branch to perform. It asks the branch to remain connected. And may the God who spoke from the burning bush and bled outside the city walls meet you exactly where you are standing today and become the very reality you have been searching for in the shadows. If this opens something up for you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who needs to know. Jesus was not just giving good advice. He was diagnosing our deepest hungers, our deepest darkness, our deepest fears of death. They do not have to generate their own rescue. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts and answering them with the only name that can hold human weight. To feel the impact of what he was doing, you have to follow the trail of those 7 statements. And the first time he drops the name, he is standing in front of a massive crowd of desperate people whose stomachs are empty. Pointing at a piece of bread, they completely misunderstood. We are a species defined by our hunger. If you look at human history, most of our wars, our anxieties, and our daily routines revolve around the simple arithmetic of securing enough resources to make it to tomorrow. This is the timeline we all live on. The crowd tracking Jesus down in John chapter 6 is operating on that exact same timeline. Their stomachs are growling. Their sandals are dusty from chasing him around the Sea of Galilee. And they are looking for a practical king. He had just taken 5 barley loaves. You can almost smell the course yeast-heavy crust breaking in his hands, and fed thousands on a grassy hillside. The fire is not feeding on the branches at all. It is a fire that feeds only on itself. Uncreated and unconsuming. They want him to do it again. So they issue a historical challenge. They tell him that Moses gave their ancestors manna in the desert, raining bread down on the dry, cracked earth of the wilderness. They want to know if Jesus can match that trick. They are asking for a bakery. He gives them a theology. He tells them that Moses did not give them the true bread from heaven. God did. And then, he drops the ancient name, I am the bread of life. The phrase he uses in the text is, Ego eimi ho artos tes zoes. We need to pause on that final word, zoes, from the root zoe. In Greek, there are different words for life. If you want to talk about biological life, the beating of a heart, the firing of synapses, the breath filling a lung, you use the word bios. That is the life the crowd was trying to sustain. That is the biological reality the manna kept going for 40 years before every single person who ate it eventually died in the sand. But Jesus does not say he is the bread of bios. He uses su. This word refers to the absolute fullness of life, the uncreated, eternal vitality that only exists in the divine nature itself. The manna in the wilderness was not the miracle. It was the shadow. For 40 years, the Israelites had to step out of their tents every morning. Moses takes off his sandals, feeling the jagged heat of the red rock against his skin. and asks the voice in the fire a very simple question, and gather exactly what they needed for that specific day. It spoiled if they hoarded it. It melted in the morning sun. It was an ecosystem designed to force a stubborn, frightened people into a rhythm of daily, terrifying trust. They had to learn that their existence depended on a God who provided, not on their ability to stockpile resources. When Jesus stands before this hungry crowd and claims to be the true bread, he is rewiring their entire history. He is telling them that their deepest hunger is not for calories or political stability. Their deepest hunger is for the presence of the one who made them. He is not offering sustenance. He is offering himself. But a piece of bread is a quiet, unimposing thing. You have to take it in. You have to consume it. And 2 chapters later, Jesus takes the sacred name again. But this time, he moves from the quiet intimacy of bread to the most spectacular, blinding visual display in all of Jerusalem. It is the last night of the Feast of Tabernacles. Picture the scene in the Court of the Women. 4 massive, golden lampstands tower over the crowd. They are 75 feet high. Young priests climb towering wooden ladders carrying heavy pitchers of olive oil. They pack the golden bowls with wicks made from the worn-out, frayed linen garments of the priests. They strike the flint. The fire catches. When I go to the Israelites and they ask who sent me, "What is your name?" the voice does not give him a label. Flames roar into the black Judean sky. Heat radiates across the cold limestone pavement. The heavy smell of burning olive oil fills the air. Musicians pluck harps and clash cymbals. Men dance with blazing torches in their hands. The rabbis wrote that the blaze was so violently bright, there was not a single courtyard in all of Jerusalem that was not illuminated by its glow. It is a sensory overload of light and sound and heat. The feast is a memorial. It is designed to remind the Israelites of the pillar of fire that led their ancestors through the terrifying darkness of the desert. But on the 8th day, the feast ends. The massive lamps are extinguished. The smoke clears. The courtyards of Jerusalem go dark again. And it is right here, standing in the shadow of these burnt-out, towering lamps, that Jesus opens his mouth and drops the sacred name a second time. I am the light of the world. He does not say he has the light. He does not say he will point them to the light. He is the light. He is claiming to be the pillar of fire. For 40 years in the wilderness, that pillar dictated every move the nation made. When the fire stopped, they camped. When the fire moved, they packed up their tents and followed. It kept the desert predators away. It pushed back the freezing cold of the wasteland night. The pillar of fire was not just a navigational tool. It gives him a verb. Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. I am that I am. Tell them I am has sent you. It was the visible, burning glory of God, making his home among his people. By standing in the temple and claiming this title, Jesus is telling them that the fire has returned. But this time, it is not hovering in the sky. It has taken on flesh and bone. It is standing in the treasury, speaking in a Galilean accent. But light is exposing. Light reveals where we are lost. And it shows us the boundary lines of where we belong. And to get inside those boundary lines, you cannot just look at the fire from a distance. You have to walk through an opening. When we read the pastoral imagery of the New Testament today, we tend to sanitize it. We picture pristine green meadows, fluffy white sheep, and a gentle man carrying a staff, looking like a quiet figure in a stained glass window. But first-century shepherding was a brutal, physically exhausting economic reality. The Judean hills were unforgiving, filled with jagged limestone ravines, freezing night winds, and hungry predators waiting in the shadows. When shepherds had their flocks far out in the wilderness, they could not drive them all the way back to a village at night. Instead, they used rough sheepfolds, circles built out of stacked field stones, often topped with sharp, tangled briars to keep the wolves and thieves out. These stone circles were completely enclosed, except for a single, narrow opening. Fast forward 1,500 years, the world has changed. The empire is Roman. The language of the street is Greek. There was no wooden gate. There were no iron hinges or heavy deadbolts. When Jesus looks at the religious leaders in John chapter 10 and says, "I am the door of the sheep," we usually imagine a wooden construct. We think of a portal we just have to push open and walk through. But to a first-century audience, the image was entirely visceral. The door is not a piece of architecture. It is a living body. When the sun went down and the cold wind began to bite, the shepherd would gather his flock inside the stone enclosure. The smell of coarse wool and dry earth filled the small space. And then, the shepherd would physically lie down across the narrow gap. His own body became the barrier. No sheep could wander out into the dangerous dark without stepping over him. No wolf. No thief. No predator could get to the flock without going through the shepherd first. If this ancient imagery is shifting the way you read your Bible, you are exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the shepherd lies down in the dirt. By claiming the sacred ego eimi and attaching it to this specific image, and that's sacred. Terrifying Hebrew name I am has been translated into a specific Greek phrase, ego eimi. Jesus is redefining the concept of access. The religious leaders of his day had turned access to God into a labyrinth of purity laws, rituals, and impossible standards. They were acting as gatekeepers, deciding who was clean enough to come inside the fold and who had to be cast out. Jesus completely bypasses their system. He tells them that true safety, true belonging, does not happen through an institution or a set of behavioral checklists. He is the only access point. To find rest, you have to pass over his own physical body. He does not build a gate to protect his people. He becomes the gate. But lying in the dirt as a passive barrier is only one part of the job, because eventually, the predators in the Judean hills do not just wait in the shadows. Eventually, the wolves lunge, the teeth flash in the dark, and the passive barrier has to stand up and fight. The prophets knew exactly what that fight would look like. Read the scroll of Ezekiel, chapter 34. The imagery is brutal. Sheep scatter across the dark mountains. The wind howls. The predators close in. Bones bleach on the jagged limestone ridges. The kings of Israel sit in ivory palaces. The priests wear fine linen. They feast on the roasted meat. They clothe themselves in the thickest wool. It is a heavy, dangerous phrase. It is not a casual greeting. It is the linguistic fingerprint of the eternal God. They do not search for the strays. They do not bandage the broken legs. They do not carry the sick. They abandon the flock to the dark. God watches the slaughter. God issues a devastating verdict. He fires the leaders. He strips them of their power. He promises a radical rescue. I myself will search for my sheep. I will seek them out. 600 years pass. The dust settles. The corruption continues. The Roman Empire taxes the poor into the ground. The religious elite build heavier burdens on the peasants. The temple becomes a marketplace. The sheep are still lost. They are still bleeding. Then Jesus stands in the shadow of the temple. He claims the sacred ego eimi. I am the good shepherd. The crowd knows the Ezekiel scroll. They hear the ancient echo. They know exactly who he is claiming to be, God himself, walking in the dirt, coming to find his flock. But Jesus adds a violent detail Ezekiel never mentioned. The Greek word he uses for good is not agathos. That word means moral. That word means adequate. He uses kalos, beautiful, noble, magnificent. A hired hand sees the wolf coming. He drops his staff. He runs for his life. The wolf tears the flock apart. The kalos shepherd stays. He grips his staff. He steps between the flock and the fangs.